Every morning, just as the sun began to push its first golden rays through the haze of the city, she walked through the park with a small thermos of tea cradled in her hands. The air always smelled faintly of dew and distant bakery bread, and her shoes crunched softly over the gravel path that led to his bench, the one by the pond, beneath the crooked old oak tree. The old man was always there before her, wrapped in his brown wool coat, his hat slightly tilted, feeding crumbs to the pigeons that never failed to gather at his feet. At first, she hadn't planned to speak to him. He seemed fragile, lost in thoughts that belonged to another time. But one windy morning, a gust scattered his bag of breadcrumbs across the path, and without thinking, she knelt down to help him gather them. That was how it started, with a quiet, "Thank you," a shared smile, and an awkward silence that felt strangely comfortable. The next day, she brought him tea. "You look like you could use something warm," she had said shyly, holding out a paper cup. He hesitated, then accepted it with both hands, sipping slowly as if it were the finest drink in the world. "You remind me of my granddaughter," he told her, his voice raspy but kind. "She used to bring me tea just like this before she moved away." From that day on, their meetings became a ritual. Every morning, rain or shine, she came. They talked about everything and nothing: his life as a retired watchmaker, her struggle to find steady work after losing her job, the pigeons that seemed to have their own personalities. Sometimes, he brought an old photo album, showing her pictures of his wife, who had passed away years ago. She noticed how his fingers trembled when he turned the pages, so she began doing it for him, gently, carefully, as if the photos might shatter. The people who walked by rarely noticed them, a young woman and an old man, sharing quiet conversations over tea. But to her, those moments mattered. In a world that always seemed to rush past, this small act of kindness had become her anchor, a reason to rise early and smile again. She didn't know it yet, but those mornings would soon change her life in ways she could never have imagined. One chilly morning, the park felt different. The air was heavier, the silence sharper. She walked the familiar path with her thermos of tea pressed to her chest, half humming an old tune the man had once whistled. The oak tree came into view, but the bench beneath it was empty. No brown hat, no gentle smile, no pigeons pecking at crumbs. Just a cold, vacant seat. She froze. For months, he had never missed a morning. Even when the rain poured and the wind howled, he had been there, always with a story or a soft laugh waiting for her. Now the emptiness felt wrong, like a word left unfinished. She sat on the bench anyway, setting the spare paper cup beside her, and waited. Maybe he was running late. Maybe his bus was delayed. She waited until the tea grew cold and the morning crowd thinned, but he never came. The next few days passed in a blur of worry. She returned to the park again and again, scanning every bench, every path. She even asked the groundskeeper if he'd seen the old man. "The one who feeds the pigeons," he said, scratching his chin. "Haven't seen him in a few days. Maybe he's sick." The words made her chest tighten. By the fourth day, she was carrying more than tea, a small bag of groceries and the scarf she'd been knitting for him. She told herself she'd find out where he lived, bring him soup, check if he was okay. But when she reached the bench, she saw something she hadn't expected: a sleek black car parked by the curb, gleaming in the morning sun. Beside it, the old man stood with two strangers, men in dark suits, their posture stiff, their expressions tense. She hesitated before stepping closer. The old man spotted her first. His eyes softened, relief washing over his face. "Child," he called weakly. She hurried forward, smiling in pure relief. But before she could reach him, one of the suited men, younger, sharp-featured, and clearly in control, stepped in front of her. "Can I help you?" he asked, voice clipped. "I'm just here to see him," she said, glancing past him to the old man. "We have tea together every morning." The young man's expression shifted from curiosity to suspicion. "You're her," he said slowly, as if the word carried weight. "The one who's been visiting my grandfather." His tone made her stomach twist. She looked at the old man, but he seemed too frail, too shaken to speak. The man in the suit folded his arms, his cold eyes narrowing. In that moment, she felt something in the air change, like the calm before a storm she didn't yet understand. The silence that followed was thick and uneasy, broken only by the crunch of gravel beneath her shoes. The old man tried to speak, but his grandson raised a hand sharply, silencing him. "I'm talking to her," he said coldly, turning his gaze back to the young woman. "You've been coming here every day, haven't you? Bringing him things, talking to him, taking his time." She blinked, stunned by the accusation. "Yes, I visit him," she said carefully. "He's alone most days, and I just wanted to help." She tried to smile, hoping to ease the tension. "We share tea. I listen to his stories. That's all." The grandson didn't look convinced. He exchanged a glance with one of the lawyers standing beside him, a tall man clutching a leather folder. "You expect me to believe that?" the grandson said, his voice low but edged with contempt. "That you've been doing this out of kindness?" Her throat tightened. "That's exactly why," she said softly. "He reminded me of someone I lost." For a moment, the grandson seemed taken aback, just a flicker of doubt, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. He pulled a stack of papers from the lawyer's hands and held them out to her. "Then maybe you can explain this," he said. The papers rustled as he flipped through them, receipts, bank printouts, handwritten notes. Her eyes widened in confusion. "What is this?" she asked. "Transactions," the lawyer said curtly. "Money withdrawn in cash, small amounts, but frequent. And your name appears here." "That's impossible," she said, shaking her head. "I never." The grandson stepped closer, his voice rising. "Don't lie to me. My grandfather is old and easily influenced. I don't know what you've been telling him, but it ends today." The old man finally spoke, his voice trembling. "She didn't take anything, Daniel. She just sits with me. She listens." But Daniel only sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose as if he were tired of repeating himself. "Grandpa, please, you don't see what's happening. These people, they find lonely old men, make them feel special, and then," his eyes flicked toward her. "Then they take advantage." Her heart pounded. She wanted to shout, to defend herself, but her voice felt small and brittle in the face of his certainty. "You've got it wrong," she said finally, her words barely a whisper. Daniel's jaw tightened. "No, you've had your fun, but if you come near him again, I'll make sure there are consequences." He turned toward the lawyers. "Let's go." As they helped the old man toward the car, she reached out instinctively. "Please, let me explain." The old man looked back at her, tears pooling in his eyes. "Don't blame him," he murmured weakly. "He thinks he's protecting me." But as the car door closed, sealing him away, she felt the weight of injustice press down on her chest. She had given nothing but kindness, and now, it was being twisted into something ugly. The sound of the engine faded down the path, leaving her alone beside the empty bench, the untouched cup of tea cooling in her trembling hands. That night, she couldn't sleep. The image of the old man's tearful face haunted her, replaying again and again in her mind like a broken reel. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him sitting in that black car, his frail hand pressed weakly against the window as if trying to reach for her. She'd tried to tell herself it wasn't her fault, that his grandson had simply misunderstood, but the ache in her chest told a different story. Days turned into weeks, and she still went to the park, unable to break the habit that had once given her mornings meaning. The bench beneath the oak stood empty again, like a reminder of everything she'd lost. The pigeons still came, pecking around her feet, and sometimes she poured tea into both cups out of habit. But the silence that followed was unbearable. One afternoon, as the first signs of winter began to creep into the city, frost nibbling at the leaves, the air sharp and dry, she noticed a man in a postal uniform walking toward her with a small brown envelope. "You Miss Amina Khan?" he asked. She blinked, surprised. "Yes." He handed her the envelope, nodded, and left before she could ask anything more. Her heart thudded as she looked down at the return address. It was from a law firm. Inside was a short letter, neatly typed, and a small velvet box. The words blurred as she read. "Mr. Harold Whitmore has passed away peacefully in his sleep. In accordance with his wishes, a personal item has been left in your care." Her hands trembled as she opened the box. Inside lay a silver pocket watch, worn, but still gleaming softly under the light. The back was engraved with delicate cursive words that made her breath catch, "For kindness money can't buy." Tears welled in her eyes as she traced the inscription with her fingertip. She remembered him telling her once, "When I was a watchmaker, I learned that time is the only thing we truly give away. You've given me more than enough of yours." She hadn't realized how much those mornings had meant to him, or to herself, until now. The next day, she went back to the park, placing the pocket watch gently on the bench beside her teacup. The pigeons gathered again, fluttering their wings in the cold air. For a moment, it almost felt like he was there beside her, smiling that soft, grateful smile. She whispered into the wind, "Thank you, for remembering me." And though the bench was empty, the space beside her didn't feel lonely anymore.